The Book. A Christmas Tale by DSBT. Written for BCA Radio Z. We find ourselves in a house. It is bright, colourful, well kept, but inhabited by only one man, called Derek Finch. Mr. Finch, a tall, friendly man, lives alone, with no pets and no family. Having made his money from the stock market, he now lives alone comfortably, reading books in his great library, not wanting anything else. The nature outside goes almost totally unnoticed. His car, rarely driven, sits on the long gravel driveway. The house, though, is kept clean by a maid who comes in 3 times a week. The house is barely used. Mr. Finch loves his library a little too much. He is obsessed with reading. The house is very old, built in 1727. It was host to many parties and balls, home to several families, a place of birth for many, and a resting place for many more. Mr. Finch doesn't care about this. He has no interest in the building or the people who have lived there. Only his books, his library, and reading. This has always been his dream, to read and never stop. Anyone looking in on his life, perhaps even yourself, believe that he is wasting his life, never experiencing love, adventure, experiences, and more. But he believes that he can attain all of this by reading. Little does Mr. Derek Finch know, he is about to discover a book that will change his life irreversibly, a book so incredible that it defies logic, science, and physics, a book with no title, but much history, a book with no writing, but that says everything and nothing. It simply is the book. Mr. Finch, having finished reading an adaptation of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, he slides the novel onto the shelf where it had been the day before. A low, reverberating and peculiar thud alerts Mr. Finch that something has fallen down off of one of the high shelves. Turning round to look, he spies a strange object wrapped in a dirty grey sheet, held in its folded state by ancient, worn garden twine. Mr. Finch goes to pick up the bizarre artifact when Mrs. Jones opens the door to speak to him.
"Mr. Finch," she says with her strange voice, "the house is clean, the cupboards are full, and I've filled up the kettle. Will that be all for today?"
"Yes, Mrs. Jones, that is all. Have a good afternoon," Mr. Finch replies. Mrs. Jones nods and leaves to go home, to her cats and television. Mr. Finch returns his concentration to the item on the floor, only to discover that it has disappeared. Looking up the massive bookshelf to try and spot the object that somehow has made its way onto the topmost shelf, Mr. Finch finds himself puzzled. Moving his bookcase ladder, he moves up the steps with the agility of a house cat hunting a mouse. Retrieving the cloth-covered thing from the dusty shelf, he swiftly makes his way back down the steps, slipping on the last rung and falling onto the plush carpet. Recovering, Mr. Finch places the object on the desk, and he observes it carefully. With some care and contemplation, he unwraps the artifact and finds himself in awe. Laying on the desk was a book, strangely bound in black leather, flecked with red. It seemed to radiate heat, an aura surrounding it. Mr. Finch went to pick up the peculiar book when suddenly the telephone begins to ring loudly. Mr. Finch hates his telephone, hates the sound of the bells inside it. Every time someone calls, he simply wants to throw it at a wall or cut it in half with a chainsaw, or, as he had dreamt many times, set it on fire. Mr. Finch picks up the receiver and holds it to his ear. "Hello?" he says. "Who's this?" A moment elapses, and a voice answers his question.
"Hello. Can I interest you in a new policy for your health insurance?"
Slamming down the receiver, he takes in a lungful of air, trying desperately to reduce the tension in his shoulders and neck. Just as he feels the tight muscles relax, they tense again as the phone rings. "Who is this now?" he demands angrily, picking up the receiver again. There is silence. Mr. Finch can't hear a single breath from the caller. Suddenly, in the quiet of the library, he hears the caller speak.
"Don't read the book. You will vanish forever. The story of yours shall disappear."
Mr. Finch hears the caller's phone click, and the line dies. The room suddenly feels very warm to Mr. Finch, almost as though all the radiators were on full. Stepping outside into the cold, mid-December chill, Mr. Finch contemplates his situation. How did they know I had the book, he thinks. Something in the corner of his eye makes him stay still. A human figure. He peripherally watches in abject fear as the lurching, dark figure looms closer to him. Holding on tightly to the freezing cold balcony rail, Mr. Finch continues to feel the heat inside him and from the figure. Straining desperately, he jerks his head to face the intruder, but discovers it has disappeared, leaving only a gentle fog to disperse. Did he see its face in that strange little airborne moisture? A ghost of familiarity, recognizable features? Mr. Finch begins to feel the winter cold, his chest tightening as he starts to shiver violently. He goes back into the comfortable library, embracing its warmth, its smell of ancient pages, its absolute pure nature. He walks over to the desk, sure of himself, focused, unscared. Just as he touches the object's front cover, the telephone begins to ring. Picking up the receiver, he holds it close to his face, hesitantly, before touching it to his ear.
"Don't read the book, or you shall die,"
says the voice on the other end of the line. "Who is this?" he queries. His question comes too late. The caller has already hung up on him. Angry with himself and angry at the telephone, he picks up the strange book and opens its cover, no longer caring about the warnings, no longer considering who it might have been that called him. Confused and aggravated, he leafs through the pages, studying them with a growing interest. "There's nothing here!" he exclaims. The pages of the book are as white as the snow that has started to fall outside. Not a drop of ink blemishes its many leaves. "Ridiculous," Mr. Finch says to himself. The telephone rings loudly. To Mr. Finch, it sounds deafening, far louder than any other time that it has rung. Picking up the receiver, he holds it to his ear and listens.
"You read the book?"
says the voice, not asking a question, but rather stating a fact.
"We knew you would."
"Who are you?" asks Mr. Finch.
"People of the past, present and yet to come. Keepers of the text, keepers of the text, creatures of nothing."
"You're deranged," declares Mr. Finch.
"No,"
replies the voice.
"we warned you, Derek. And you didn't listen.
With that, the line goes dead again. Taking hold of the book, Mr. Finch walks to the balcony and hurls the offensive object away into the large gardens, watching it fly through the air like some peculiar bird. Pleased with himself, he walks back into his library and sits down at his desk, confused and fearful. The book was on the desk, impossibly. "Mrs. Jones," exclaims Mr. Finch, "are you still here?" The house was silent. "Mrs. Jones, this isn't funny anymore." The house remained silent. Mr. Finch jumps up from his chair, runs towards the door to the hallway, wrenches it open, and runs into the library. Bewildered, he runs to the balcony doors and, passing through them, once again finds himself in his library. "What is this?" he asks nobody. "Your story is nearly at an end," says a strange voice. "Where are you?" Mr. Finch queries. "How will it end?" says another voice. "Death by 1,000 paper cuts?" Mr. Finch finds himself bleeding all over his body, unable to speak. "Perhaps the Japanese harikari death." Mr. Finch, no longer bleeding, finds himself holding a samurai sword, driving it through his heart. Everything briefly going dark, before light suddenly returns.
"So many different deaths. The options are almost endless,"
said one of the many voices. "What are you doing? Why?" asks Mr. Finch desperately.
"You were warned,"
booms a voice. "We told you not to read the book."
"I didn't read it, I swear," Mr. Finch says.
"Lies,"
booms another voice.
"Dost thou think he can lie to us?"
"I don't know who you are. Tell me."
"You read the book, as we did. Now you shall join us."
"I can't have read the book, there was nothing in it to read,"
"Open the book again,"
commands a voice.
"Ye shall see the story."
Mr. Finch hesitantly walks over to the book on his desk and places his hand on its cover.
"Yes,"
says one of the voices.
"do as we did. Follow in our footsteps. William Falconer, Ambrose Bierce, George Bass, Solomon Northup, Henry Hudson. Become one of us."
Mr. Finch is just about to open the book, resigning himself to his fate, when he has a dawning realization. "Do as we did," he says to the empty space in his library, removing his hand from the book. "You read the book,"
"Every word,"
says a Scottish voice.
"the stories of our lives, from beginning to ghastly end."
"But you saw the blank pages?" queries Mr. Finch.
"Of course," replies the voice. "That's how it always begins."
"I refuse to read the writing within those pages,"
"You must,"
booms one of the voices.
"It is the fate of all who come into its possession."
"No," cries Mr. Finch. "You shall not make me."
"You will,"
shouts a voice. "I will not," Mr. Finch returns defiantly.
"Then you shall suffer a fate far exceeding that of us. You shall question everything, forever, until the day you perish."
"I will suffer it. Better to strive against a fate such as yours than to accept it." Mr. Finch wakes up in his desk chair, with a start, looking round himself in bewilderment.
"Mr. Finch,"
says Mrs. Jones at the library door.
"the house is clean, cupboards are full, and I've filled up the kettle. Will that be all today?"
"Yes, that's all, Mrs. Jones," says Mr. Finch. "I was just dozing."
"Oh, you shouldn't do that after cheese on toast. It's bad for you."
Mr. Finch spies a plate on his desk with the remains of his lunch scattered upon it. The nightmare appetizer.
"See you tomorrow, Mr. Finch,"
says Mrs. Jones, closing the library door. Mr. Finch sits back in his chair, cogitating, deciding and simplifying, applying logic to the situation. A low, reverberating, and peculiar thud alerts Mr. Finch that something has fallen down off of one of the high shelves. Turning his head to look, he sees a strange, familiar object wrapped in a dirty, grey sheet. Mr. Finch gets a cold, sharp, and cutting sensation of déjà vu. You have been listening to A Christmas Ghost Tale on BCA Radio Z. The book was written by DSBT specifically for radio.